The case under review occurred in 2018 in Griffin, Georgia. Stephen Freeman and Mary Catherine Higdon, who had been a couple for 7 years, first met while they were still in school. Stephen, born on January 1st, 1995 in Thomaston, Georgia, grew up in Griffin. Raised in a warm, close-knit family, Stephen's parents worked hard to provide him and his brother with the best possible start in life. Stephen enjoyed a happy childhood and was well regarded among his peers, maintaining a broad circle of friends. He had 3 close friends from early childhood with whom he spent a great deal of time. An incurable optimist, Stephen was known for his cheerful demeanor and love for the outdoors. He found joy in hiking, camping, hunting, and fishing, activities that brought him immense satisfaction. His bond with his mother was particularly strong. He felt great pride when she continued her education and earned her college diploma. In a heartfelt letter, Stephen addressed her as the most wonderful woman in the world, expressing gratitude for her support and highlighting his admiration for her dedication and persistence. Stephen was open with his emotions, often telling his loved ones how much he cared for them. His relationship with Mary Catherine Higdon, a year older than him, began in high school and quickly blossomed into a deep connection. Their shared passions and interests, including a love for camping and outdoor activities, drew them closer. Mary Catherine was not only enthusiastic about joining Stephen and his friends on their outdoor activities, but also very proficient with firearms, which endeared her to Stephen's circle of friends. By 2018, Mary Catherine came from a loving family and had a vibrant personality. As a child, she enjoyed being the center of attention, entertaining guests at family gatherings with her singing and dancing. Her energy, creativity, and love for nature and animals were evident throughout her life. After completing their schooling, Stephen and Mary Catherine moved in together. Stephen worked for a roofing company while Mary Catherine took on a role as a teaching assistant at a kindergarten. By 2018, the year the events of this story unfolded, Stephen was 23 and Mary Catherine was 24. Despite their 7 years together, their relationship faced its share of challenges, including occasional arguments and a brief breakup. Nevertheless, they consistently resolved their differences and chose to stay together. Over the years, they had developed strong relationships with each other's families. Mary Catherine regularly joined Stephen's family for Sunday dinners, and Stephen's mother treated her as if she were her own daughter. The two families also celebrated Christmases together. Stephen and Mary Catherine lived on Sunnybrook Drive, and on August 1st, 2018, just before 11 p.m., an ambulance and police car arrived at their street. Earlier that night, a distraught Mary Catherine had called 911 emergency services, claiming she had accidentally shot her boyfriend. In a frantic and tearful call, Mary Catherine struggled to explain the situation, saying that she had tried to hand Stephen a gun, which had gone off unexpectedly. She claimed she didn't believe the gun was loaded. When emergency personnel arrived and entered the apartment, they found Stephen on a mattress in the living room with Mary Catherine kneeling beside him crying. As the responders approached, she begged for help. Overwhelmed with emotion, sobbing uncontrollably, and gasping for breath, repeatedly pleading, "Please help me, please."
Okay. Ma'am, come on, come on. Two rooms right now. One room. How many bullets were fired, man?
No, it was just one. I was just walking in here and I just like.
One round was fired?
Okay.
Out.
It was just. Right. I just, because we like to sleep with the gun beside us. And now we haven't moved our bed into the
Stand up. Do me a favor, okay?
Yes,
Let's get in here and let's do some work, okay? Go with that officer, go that way, please. Officer Johnson, okay? What's his name?
Please, my dad's coming.
Ma'am, come on. Ma'am, go that way.
I cannot lose him. I cannot lose him.
You got a stretcher outside yet?
Glove on, gentlemen.
Look, calm down, Paul. Calm down.
Breathe.
Literally, like, I was just walking.
Okay, stop. Look at me. Look at me. What's your name?
Mary Copperfield.
Mary?
Yes, Mary Copperfield.
All right, listen.
The police officers attempted to escort her out of the room, but she resisted vehemently, screaming that she couldn't lose Stephen. Stephen, who still had a pulse, was rushed to the hospital. Only after he was taken away were the officers able to speak with Mary Catherine, though she remained in a state of shock. She continually repeated that the shooting was accidental, asserting that the gun discharged when she was trying to hand it to Stephen, and she couldn't understand how it happened, as she wasn't even aiming in that direction. Mary Catherine reported that they owned about 10 firearms, mostly hunting rifles, but including other types as well. On that tragic night, she had attempted to hand Stephen a Glock 42, which discharged and struck him in the chest just below the neck. Unfortunately, Stephen succumbed to his injuries a few minutes before midnight upon arrival at the hospital. Despite Mary Catherine's account, the police began to entertain the possibility that the shooting might not have been an accident. Evidence suggested a heated argument between the couple earlier that evening, with food strewn across the kitchen counters and floor, indicating a possible outburst of rage. Additionally, Mary Catherine's breath smelled of alcohol, and she mumbled incoherently, leading the police to take her to the station for further questioning, which she agreed to voluntarily. During the interview, Mary Catherine maintained that the shooting was accidental. She iterated her love for Stephen, describing him as the love of her life and her best friend, and insisted she would never harm him. She explained that both she and Stephen shared a passion for hunting and firearms, which is why they had guns at home, although she claimed they were never loaded. Mary Catherine expressed surprise when the gun fired, but during the interrogation, she mistakenly said when she threw the gun to Stephen, it discharged. This statement conflicted with her initial claim at the scene that she had handed the gun to Stephen while he was sitting on the bed. The police were already skeptical, but this discrepancy raised further doubts about her story. Given Mary Catherine's substantial experience with firearms, she worked part-time at a local gun shop and boasted of her extensive knowledge. Officers found it hard to believe she would handle a gun so carelessly. Her familiarity with firearms and safety procedures made the idea of her merely throwing a gun at Stephen implausible. The investigators decided to adapt a more confrontational approach during the interrogation. They explicitly told Mary Catherine that they didn't believe her account and urged her to tell the truth. They also highlighted the state of the kitchen, indicating a quarrel had taken place. When the tone of the conversation escalated and the officer raised his voice, Mary Catherine began to cry and allegedly confessed that she had pulled the trigger in a fit of anger. However, the exact nature of this confession is unclear. Technical issues in the interrogation room, constant background noise that drowned out the audio, meant the recorded confession was not audible. Despite these complications, Mary Catherine was arrested and charged with murder. Although the confession was not clearly recorded, investigators remained confident in their case, believing that other evidence would be sufficient for conviction. They held that the gun was indeed loaded that night and pointed to the grease inside the firearm as evidence that the shooting was not accidental. Mary Catherine had mentioned preparing a roast beef dinner for Stephen, which was his favorite, further complicating the narrative of the events leading to the shooting. Investigators later discovered fragments of the roast beef scattered across the kitchen with greasy residues, suggesting that the gun may have been loaded after the meal was prepared. The investigators also decided to interview the couple's friends, revealing that their relationship was far from ideal. Stephen's friends admitted that upon hearing of the shooting, they immediately suspected Mary Catherine, as it was not the first time she had pointed a gun at Stephen. He had previously confided in them about these incidents. Initially, Stephen and Catherine's relationship seemed perfect, but over time, Mary Catherine's resentment towards Stephen grew. According to his friends, she became increasingly possessive, emotionally unstable, and dangerously volatile. Their relationship deteriorated into a toxic one marked by frequent arguments, public outbursts, and even physical confrontation. Stephen often left the apartment to escape the constant turmoil, sometimes blocking her number to avoid incessant calls. One co-worker recalled that Mary Catherine once called Stephen 30 times before work on multiple occasions. On April 21st, 2018, 3 months before Stephen's death, he texted a friend about Mary Catherine's alarming behavior. She had been screaming and threatening to shoot both herself and Stephen. A month later, Stephen expressed his deep fear to another friend, stating that despite previous threats, he recently saw something in Mary Catherine's eyes that convinced him she might actually pull the trigger. Stephen decided to end the relationship and planned to move to another city to live with a friend, intending to collect his belongings while Mary Catherine was at work and without notifying her. He was set to leave on August 3rd, but unfortunately, he was shot 2 days later. Although Stephen had never reported these earlier incidents to the police, the investigation revealed that authorities had been called to their home 5 times in the past year, several of which were related to domestic disputes. On July 30th, 2 days before the shooting, Stephen and Mary Catherine exchanged affectionate texts, but their relationship took a turn for the worse the following day. After another argument on the night of July 31st, Stephen stayed at a friend's place, ignoring Mary Catherine's calls and texts. He even told his mother he had no intention of returning to the apartment, expressing his exhaustion with the situation. The next day, August 1st, Mary Catherine, hoping to reconcile, prepared for dinner for both of them. However, Stephen continued to ignore her attempts to reach him. Angered and desperate, Mary Catherine contacted Stephen's mother, who informed her that Stephen was staying with his friend Thomas. Determined to confront him, Mary Catherine drove to Thomas's apartment, spotted their car, and followed them closely. When she caught up, she began yelling at Stephen, demanding he come home. Stephen reluctantly but resigned and agreed to go with her. Tragically, this decision led to a dire outcome. 2 hours later, an ambulance rushed Stephen to the hospital, and Mary Catherine was subsequently charged with murder, assault, and using a firearm to commit a felony. She was offered a plea deal involving imprisonment with a possibility of parole, but rejected it. The trial began on June 17, 2019, with the prosecution seeking to demonstrate that Mary Catherine had killed Stephen in cold blood, driven primarily by anger. In court, evidence included greasy marks on the gun, stains on the bedsheet, which the prosecution argued indicated that Stephen was shot while sitting on the bed and then fell backward onto the mattress. Bloodstains were found only in one corner of the sheet. Testimonies from friends, family, and co-workers consistently painted a picture of a toxic relationship. They described frequent arguments, Mary Catherine's possessiveness, and prior threats involving a gun. The prosecution realized that Mary Catherine had changed her account of the events multiple times during the trial, now claiming self-defense. Her defense attorney argued that Stephen had a hidden abusive side which no one but Mary Catherine knew about. The lawyer maintained that Stephen had a history of various forms of abuse, including aggression and controlling behavior. According to the defense, Stephen had frequently imposed rigid rules on Mary Catherine and had been physically abusive. Evidence presented included 63 pages of hateful messages from Stephen retrieved from Mary Catherine's old phone, which showed his rage when he discovered Mary Catherine had slept with one of his friends during a brief breakup. Mary Catherine took the stand, cheerfully recounting her experiences with Stephen. She described a controlling relationship where Stephen would often accuse her of infidelity, leading to arguments and physical altercations. She recounted how Stephen had made threats and engaged in violent behavior, including tying her up and hitting her. Mary Catherine claimed that the violence she experienced, along with Stephen's threatening behavior, led to the tragic events of August 1st. She testified that after an argument, she had grabbed the gun to defend herself, and in a moment of fear, the gun discharged when Stephen lunged at her. This was the first time Mary Catherine mentioned Stephen's aggression in court, a significant deviation from her earlier police statement. The prosecutor highlighted this inconsistency and questioned why she had not reported the abuse to the police. Mary Catherine explained that she felt embarrassed and blamed herself for provoking Stephen. She also revealed that she had researched violent pornography online, but claimed it was to please Stephen, not as evidence of her own violent tendencies. The prosecutor presented evidence showing that Mary Catherine had searched for violent adult content on the internet just hours before the shooting, casting doubt on her claims of trauma. Despite her assertions of self-defense, no supporting evidence was found, such as police reports or medical documentation, to corroborate her claims of Stephen's aggression. Mary Catherine's defense aimed to prove she acted in self-defense, with an expert witness testifying that she showed signs of battered woman syndrome. However, the prosecution's expert witness disputed this, arguing that the evidence did not support Mary Catherine's claim. The marks on the bedsheet suggested Stephen was shot while setting, contrary to Mary Catherine's statement that he lunged at her. The conflicting evidence and testimonies led to a complex and contentious trial, with both sides presenting compelling arguments to support their cases. Secondly, the defendant stated that she wanted to end the relationship that evening, yet she had been trying to reach Stephen all day. She prepared dinner in hopes of reconciling and went searching for him when he didn't come home. Unfortunately, the police interrogation recording in which she allegedly confessed could not be used as evidence in court. This was not the only issue with the investigation. It was revealed that the officers who first arrived at the scene placed the gun found next to the victim into a paper bag for safety reasons, fearing the distressed woman might harm herself. They chose to secure the weapon but failed to take photos documenting its original position. The rationale behind securing the gun instead of removing Mary Catherine from the room remains unclear. The jury deliberated for 4 hours before reaching a unanimous verdict. Mary Catherine was acquitted. Most jurors believe that while the defendant likely committed the act in question, the evidence presented did not meet the standard of her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They felt the police investigation was flawed, ranging from mishandling the weapon and failing to use the confession recording to not examining Stephen's phone data. The jury had an incomplete picture of the couple's relationship and Stephen's character, relying primarily on what was left on Mary Catherine's phone. On June 26, 2019, Mary Catherine was released from custody, becoming a free woman. Stephen's family and friends were shocked and dismayed by the verdict, feeling that justice had not been served. Stephen's mother has since become actively involved in anti-domestic violence campaigns, highlighting that violence can affect anyone regardless of gender. Thank you for watching and listening to this tragic story.